You know what's worse than finding out your wife is cheating on you? Finding out she's been doing it with your best friend for 3 years, and everyone in your social circle knew about it except you. Yeah. That's the kind of morning I had last Tuesday when I opened Claire's laptop to check our bank statement and found 17 different hotel receipts charged to her credit card, all with Sean Beckett's name on them. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Dan Foster, and I used to think I was living the American dream. 42 years old, married to a gorgeous marketing executive, father to a brilliant college senior named Emily, and owner of a decent home inspection business in suburban Boston. I had friends, barbecue parties, and a wife who used to laugh at my jokes. Used to being the operative phrase. The morning everything changed started like any other. Claire was rushing around our kitchen, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 7 a.m., barking into her phone about some client presentation. She barely glanced at me as I sat at our granite breakfast bar, nursing my coffee and scrolling through inspection reports. Dan, did you remember to call the plumber about the guest bathroom? She asked, not looking up from her phone. Yeah, he's coming Thursday, I replied, watching her grab her designer purse and head for the door. Good. And don't forget Emily's calling tonight about graduation plans. She paused at the door, finally looking at me with those green eyes that used to make my heart skip. Now they just looked impatient. Try to sound enthusiastic when she talks about her future, okay? Not everyone wants to spend their life crawling around in basements. The door slammed before I could respond. Classic Claire. Always had to get the last word in, especially if it was a dig at my career choice. I'd been a journalist for 15 years before switching to home inspection, but apparently that wasn't glamorous enough for the woman who now made twice my salary selling marketing campaigns to tech companies. I opened her laptop to check our joint account, something I'd been doing more often lately since Claire had been spending money like we'd won the lottery. That's when I saw the hotel charges, the Marriott downtown, the Hilton in Cambridge, the boutique place in Beacon Hill that cost $400 a night, all with Sean Beckett listed as the second guest. Sean, my college roommate, my best man, the guy who'd been coming to our house for dinner every other week for the past 5 years, sitting at my table, drinking my beer, and apparently planning his next romantic getaway with my wife. I sat there staring at the screen for probably 20 minutes, my coffee getting cold while my brain tried to process what I was seeing. 17 hotel stays in 8 months. Some were weekends when Claire claimed to be at marketing conferences. Others were weekday afternoons when she said she was in client meetings. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was realizing how stupid I'd been. All those times Sean had shown up unannounced when Claire was home alone. All those inside jokes between them that I wasn't part of. The way Claire had started dressing better, working out more, buying expensive lingerie that I never saw her wear. I grabbed my phone and called Pete Morrison, my old newsroom buddy who'd helped me start the inspection business. Pete was the kind of guy who could find dirt on anyone, and right now I needed someone with investigative skills and no moral qualms about using them. Danny boy, what's up? Pete's gravelly voice came through the phone. He was probably already 3 cups of coffee deep and working on his first pack of cigarettes. I need a favor, Pete. A big one. Oh, this sounds like trouble. What kind of favor? The kind where you help me figure out exactly how long my wife has been screwing my best friend. There was a pause. Jesus, Dan, you sure about this? I've got hotel receipts going back 8 months. Unless Claire and Sean have been planning some very expensive surprise parties, I'm pretty sure they're not discussing my birthday plans at the Ritz-Carlton. All right, send me what you've got. I'll make some calls, do some digging. But Dan, you sure you want to know everything? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Pete, I've been living in ignorance for 3 years apparently. I think it's time I joined the real world. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out when everything had gone wrong. Claire and I met in college, got married at 25, had Emily 2 years later. For the first 15 years, we were solid. Not perfect, but solid. We laughed together, traveled together, raised our daughter together. Then Claire got promoted to senior marketing director 3 years ago. Suddenly, she was working longer hours, traveling more, making new friends in her industry. She started going to networking events, industry conferences, client dinners that lasted until midnight. I supported it because I wanted her to be successful. I was proud of her. What an idiot. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Dad, can we talk tonight? I have some news about graduation and post-graduation plans." I texted back, "Of course, sweetheart. Looking forward to it." At least Emily still wanted to talk to me. At 20, she was everything Claire and I had hoped she'd become. Smart, funny, ambitious, and somehow still willing to spend time with her old man despite being surrounded by college friends and new experiences. The rest of the day dragged by. I had 3 inspections scheduled, which normally would have kept me busy and distracted. Instead, I found myself going through the motions while my brain churned through 3 years of memories, looking for clues I'd missed. Like the time Claire came home from a client dinner with Sean's cologne on her jacket. She said they'd been in a crowded restaurant and everyone smelled like everyone else. I believed her. Or the weekend she went to a marketing conference in New York and came back with a tan, claiming the hotel had a great rooftop pool. In February. Or the way she'd started putting her phone face down whenever she was around me and taking it with her to the bathroom. God, I really had been blind. Pete called me back around 4 o'clock. "Dan, you sitting down?" "Just tell me, Pete." "It's bad. I made some calls to people I know in the hotel industry. Your wife and Sean have been regular guests at 5 different hotels over the past 3 years. Always the same routine. Claire books the room on her card, Sean shows up separately, they spend the afternoon or weekend together." My stomach dropped. 3 years? There's more. I called my buddy who works security at Claire's office building. Sean's been showing up there after hours pretty regularly, always when Claire's working late. Bastard. "Dan, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." "Actually, Pete, it's exactly what I needed to hear. I needed to know I wasn't going crazy." "So what are you going to do?" I looked around my house, the house Claire and I had bought together, decorated together, planned to grow old in together. The house where Sean had eaten dinner with us probably 200 times over the years, always playing the role of the loyal friend while he was planning his next move on my wife. "I'm going to do what any reasonable man would do in this situation," I said. "Which is?" "I'm going to destroy both of them." That evening, Emily called right on schedule. Her voice was bright and excited, the way it used to be when she was little and had good news to share. "Dad, I have something amazing to tell you." "I'm all ears, sweetheart." "I got the job, the marketing position at the tech startup in Cambridge. They want me to start 2 weeks after graduation." "Emily, that's fantastic. I'm so proud of you." "There's more. Jake proposed." My heart stopped. Jake was Emily's boyfriend of 2 years, a good kid studying business at Boston University. But Emily was only 20 years old. Proposed? As in marriage? "I know it seems young, Dad, but we love each other and we both have good jobs lined up. We want to have a small ceremony right after graduation. Just family and close friends." I tried to process this while dealing with my own marital crisis. My daughter was getting married in 6 weeks, and my wife was cheating on me with my best friend. The irony was almost too much to handle. "Dad, are you there? Are you okay with this?" "Of course I'm okay with it, honey. If Jake makes you happy, then I'm happy." "Have you told your mother?" I called her first, but she didn't answer. She's probably in some important meeting. You know how she is. Yeah, I knew exactly how she was. Probably in a meeting at the Marriott downtown with Sean. "Well, I'm sure she'll be thrilled when you reach her. This is wonderful news, Emily. Jake's a good guy." "Thanks, Dad. That means everything to me. I was thinking we could have the ceremony at the vineyard in Concord where you and Mom got married. You know, keep it in the family tradition." The vineyard where Claire and I got married 22 years ago, where we promised to love, honor, and cherish each other until death do us part, where Sean had been my best man and given a speech about friendship and loyalty that had everyone in tears. That sounds perfect, sweetheart. After I hung up with Emily, I sat in my living room and tried to figure out how I was going to handle the next 6 weeks. My daughter was getting married, which should have been one of the happiest times of my life. Instead, I was planning to expose my wife's affair and destroy my oldest friendship. But first, I needed more evidence. Pete had given me a good start, but I needed something concrete, something undeniable, something that would make it impossible for Claire and Sean to lie their way out of this. I opened Claire's laptop again and started digging deeper. Her email was password protected, but I knew Claire well enough to guess her passwords. She used variations of Emily's name and birthday for everything. Bingo. Her email opened on the 3rd try. What I found there made the hotel receipts look like nothing. 3 years of emails between Claire and Sean, starting professional and gradually becoming intimate, then explicit, then planning sessions for their secret meetings. The most recent email was from yesterday. Sean, can't wait for this weekend at the Cape House. Dan thinks I'm at the marketing summit in Hartford. We'll have 2 whole days together. See Sean's response. Already packed, bringing that wine you like and some other surprises. This is going to be our best weekend yet. I printed out 20 pages of emails, hotel receipts, and credit card statements. Then I sat back and planned my next move. Claire thought she was going to a marketing summit this weekend. Instead, she was meeting Sean at his family's Cape Cod house for a romantic getaway, which meant I had 3 days to prepare for the confrontation of my life. But first, I needed to talk to someone who might have answers about how long this had been going on and who else knew about it. Someone who'd been watching from the inside. I needed to talk to Tara Mitchell, Claire's best friend and the biggest gossip in our social circle. If anyone knew the details of Claire's affair, it would be Tara. This was going to be interesting. Friday morning, Claire kissed me goodbye with the same perfunctory peck she'd been giving me for months. She was dressed in her best business suit, carrying the leather weekend bag I'd given her for our anniversary 2 years ago. I'll be back Sunday night, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. The marketing summit runs through Sunday afternoon. Have a great time, I replied, watching her load her bag into her BMW. Learn lots of new strategies. Oh, she was going to learn something all right, just not what she expected. As soon as her car disappeared around the corner, I called Pete. She's gone. You ready for this? Danny, are you sure about this plan? Because once we start, there's no going back. Pete, my wife is spending the weekend with my best friend at his family's beach house while lying to my face about a marketing conference. My daughter is getting married in 6 weeks and wants both her parents there. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before Emily's wedding turns into a disaster. All right, I'll pick you up in an hour. We're going to have a conversation with Tara Mitchell. Tara lived in a McMansion in Newton with her investment banker husband, Richard. She'd been Claire's best friend since college, and if there was gossip to be known about anyone in our social circle, Tara knew it. She also had a weakness for expensive wine and a tendency to overshare when she'd been drinking. Pete and I showed up at her house around noon with a bottle of Caymus Cabernet that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a week. Dan, what a surprise! Tara opened the door wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her highlighted hair pulled back in a messy bun. And Pete Morrison, I haven't seen you in ages. Hey, Tara, we were in the neighborhood and thought we'd stop by. Brought you a little gift. I held up the wine bottle. Her eyes lit up. Tara was predictable that way. Oh, you boys are terrible. Richard's at the office and I was just having a boring Saturday. Come in, come in. Tara's kitchen was the size of most people's entire first floor, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. She opened the wine with the efficiency of someone who'd had a lot of practice. So what brings you 2 troublemakers to my door? She asked, pouring generous glasses for all of us. Just wanted to catch up, I said casually. Haven't seen much of you and Richard lately. Oh, you know how it is. Richard's always working, I'm always running around with charity events and tennis lessons. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Claire in a couple weeks either. How is she? She's good. At a marketing summit this weekend in Hartford. Tara's face flickered for just a second. If I hadn't been watching carefully, I would have missed it. Hartford? That's nice. She works so hard. Pete jumped in. Yeah, Dan was just telling me how dedicated Claire is to her career. Always traveling for work, networking events, client meetings. Oh yes, Claire is very dedicated. Tara took a large sip of wine. Very focused on her professional development. I decided to push a little harder. She's been spending a lot of time with industry colleagues lately. Building relationships, you know? Sean Beckett has been really helpful with introductions in the legal marketing space. Tara nearly choked on her wine. Sean? Yes, he's been very helpful to Claire. Great guy, Pete said. Dan's known him since college. It's nice when old friends can help each other out professionally. Professionally. Yes. Tara was now staring into her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. I leaned forward. Tara, is everything okay? You seem a little uncomfortable. She looked up at me, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. Tara had never been good at hiding her emotions, which was probably why she was such an effective gossip. She felt everything intensely and shared it all. Dan, this is difficult. What's difficult? She drained her wine glass and poured herself another. How much do you know about Claire's professional relationship with Sean? Why don't you tell me what you know, and I'll tell you if it matches up with what I know. Tara looked back and forth between Pete and me. You already know, don't you? Know what, Tara? About the affair. About Claire and Sean. There it was. Out in the open. No more pretending, no more wondering if I was imagining things. How long have you known? I asked quietly. Tears started forming in Tara's eyes. 2 years. Maybe a little more. Claire swore me to secrecy. She said it was complicated, that she was trying to figure things out, that she didn't want to hurt you or Emily. 2 years. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. She's been lying to me for 2 years, and you've been helping her. Dan, I'm so sorry. I told her she needed to either end it with Sean or end it with you. I said it wasn't fair to anyone, especially Emily. But Claire said she needed time. Time for what? Time to figure out how to destroy our family more efficiently? Pete put his hand on my shoulder. Dan, take it easy. But I was just getting started. Tara, who else knows? I don't know. I mean, I haven't told anyone, but what? Monica from Claire's office knows. She's covered for Claire a few times when she was supposed to be in meetings but was actually with Sean. And I think Richard suspects something. He mentioned seeing Claire and Sean together at a restaurant downtown when she was supposed to be at a client dinner with someone else. So my wife has been carrying on an affair for 2 years, lying to me and our daughter, and half our social circle knows about it. Tara was crying now. Dan, I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have made Claire tell you. I just thought, I hoped she would come to her senses and end it. Instead, she's spending this weekend at Sean's Cape House while telling me she's at a marketing conference. Tara's face went white. The Cape House? Dan, that's where Sean takes women when he's serious about them. He took his ex-wife there when they were dating. Something cold settled in my stomach. What do you mean, serious? I mean, Claire isn't just having an affair. She's planning to leave you for Sean. She's been talking about it for months. She said she was waiting until after Emily's graduation, so it wouldn't interfere with school. I stood up so fast, I knocked over my wine glass, sending red wine spreading across Tara's pristine granite countertop. She's planning to leave me? For Sean? Dan, please sit down. Let me clean this up. But I was already heading for the door. Pete caught up with me in the driveway. Danny, where are you going? I'm going to the Cape. I'm going to end this right now. That's a bad idea, man. You're angry, you're hurt. You do something stupid now. It's going to make everything worse. I stopped and looked at Pete. Worse? My wife is planning to leave me for my best friend, and she's been lying to me for 2 years while our entire social circle watched it happen. How exactly could it get worse? Because if you go down there and confront them, you lose the element of surprise. And Dan, if what Tara just told us is true, you're going to need every advantage you can get. Pete was right. I was thinking with my emotions instead of my brain. If Claire was planning to leave me, she'd probably already talked to a lawyer. She'd probably been preparing for this conversation for months while I'd been completely in the dark. So, what do you suggest? We go back to your house. We plan this out. We figure out how to protect you and Emily when this whole thing explodes. And then? Then we make sure that when Claire and Sean get back from their romantic weekend, they walk into a situation they're not prepared for. We drove back to my house in silence. I kept thinking about Emily's phone call, about her excitement over her engagement and her wedding plans. She wanted both her parents at her wedding. She had no idea that by the time she walked down the aisle, our family might be completely destroyed. When we got to my house, Pete opened his laptop and started making notes. Okay, here's what we know. Claire and Sean have been having an affair for at least 2 years. Claire is planning to leave you for Sean, probably right after Emily's graduation. Tara knows, Monica from Claire's office knows, and Richard Mitchell probably suspects. Don't forget the hotel receipts and emails. Right, you have documentary evidence of the affair going back 3 years. The question is, what do you want to accomplish here? I thought about it. What did I want? I wanted my wife back, but the woman who'd been lying to me for 2 years wasn't the woman I'd married. I wanted my best friend back, but Sean had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I wanted my family back, but Emily was grown up and starting her own life. I want them to face consequences for what they've done, I said finally. I want everyone who knew about this and said nothing to face consequences. And I want to make sure Emily knows the truth before she gets married and starts her own family. Okay, so we're talking about public exposure, not private confrontation. What do you mean? Pete grinned, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I remembered why I'd always liked him. I mean, we don't just tell Claire and Sean that we know about the affair. We tell everyone. At the same time, in a way that makes it impossible for them to deny or minimize. Emily's wedding. Emily's wedding. Think about it, Dan. Everyone will be there. Your friends, Claire's friends, Sean, probably Monica and Tara and Richard. Everyone who knew about this affair and let it happen. I stared at Pete. You want me to expose my wife's affair at my daughter's wedding? I want you to take control of the narrative before Claire does. Because Dan, if she's planning to leave you anyway, she's going to tell Emily her version of events. She's going to make you the bad guy. She's going to say the marriage was already over, that you two grew apart, that she found love with Sean, and she deserves to be happy. He was right. Claire was a marketing executive. She knew how to spin a story, how to control a message. If I let her tell Emily about the affair first, she'd find a way to make it sound like a love story instead of a betrayal. But Emily's wedding day will be ruined anyway when Claire announces she's leaving you for your best friend. At least this way, Emily knows the truth about what kind of people her mother and Sean really are. I walked to the window and looked out at the yard where Claire and I used to host barbecues for our friends, where Sean had played catch with Emily when she was little, where we'd all sat around the fire pit last summer, drinking wine and laughing about old times while Sean and Claire were probably planning their next secret meeting. All right, I said. Let's do it. But we do it right. We do it in a way that protects Emily and makes sure everyone knows exactly what happened and who was responsible. Now you're thinking like a journalist again, Pete said. Let's plan a wedding that no one will ever forget. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. Claire came home Sunday night glowing and relaxed, full of stories about the marketing summit that had never happened. She talked about keynote speakers and networking sessions and new strategies she'd learned, all while unpacking clothes that smelled like Sean's cologne. I smiled and nodded and asked interested questions while inside I was planning her downfall. Emily called Monday night to finalize wedding details. The ceremony would be in 4 weeks at the Vineyard in Concord. 50 guests, including family and close friends, a simple reception with dinner and dancing. Everything Claire and I had always imagined for our daughter's wedding day. Dad, I'm so excited. This is going to be perfect. It's going to be unforgettable, sweetheart, I said. Absolutely unforgettable. The morning of Emily's wedding dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect May day that makes you believe in fresh starts and happy endings. I stood in my hotel room at the Concord Inn, adjusting my tie and trying to calm the nervous energy that had been building for weeks. Today was the day I would destroy my marriage, end my oldest friendship, and possibly traumatize my daughter on what should have been the happiest day of her life. But it was also the day everyone would finally know the truth. Pete knocked on my door at 8 a.m. "You ready for this, Danny?" "As ready as I'll ever be." I picked up the manila envelope from the dresser. Inside were copies of hotel receipts, emails, credit card statements, and photographs Pete had taken of Claire and Sean together at restaurants and hotels around Boston. Enough evidence to make denial impossible. "Remember, we stick to the plan. Nothing happens until after the ceremony. Emily gets her perfect wedding moment, and then we let everyone know what kind of people they've been celebrating." The Vineyard looked exactly like it had 22 years ago when Claire and I got married there. Rolling hills covered in grapevines, a rustic barn decorated with white flowers and fairy lights, round tables set up on the lawn overlooking the valley. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I arrived early and watched the other guests filter in. Sean showed up looking confident and relaxed in his expensive suit, greeting people like he belonged there. Monica from Claire's office came with her husband, whispering to other guests and shooting nervous glances in my direction. Tara and Richard Mitchell arrived fashionably late, Tara avoiding eye contact with me entirely. Everyone who had known about the affair was here. Everyone who had watched it happen and said nothing. Perfect. Claire arrived with Emily in a white limousine, both of them laughing and glowing with excitement. Emily looked radiant in her grandmother's wedding dress, her dark hair styled in an elegant updo. Claire wore a navy blue dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. For a moment, watching them together, I almost lost my nerve. This was my family, my wife of 22 years, my daughter who I loved more than life itself. Was I really going to destroy all of this for the sake of revenge? Then Sean walked over to greet Claire with a kiss on the cheek that lasted just a little too long, and I remembered why I was here. The ceremony itself was perfect. Emily and Jake exchanged vows that brought tears to everyone's eyes, promising to love and honor and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. The same promises Claire and I had made in this exact spot 2 decades earlier. I walked Emily down the aisle, handed her off to Jake, and took my seat in the front row next to Claire. She reached over and squeezed my hand during the vows, the first genuinely affectionate gesture she'd made toward me in months. "She's beautiful," Claire whispered. "We did good, Dan." "Yeah," I whispered back. "We did." For 30 minutes, we were a family again. For 30 minutes, I forgot about hotel receipts and secret emails and betrayal. I just watched my daughter get married and felt proud of the woman she'd become. Then the ceremony ended, and it was time for the reception. The cocktail hour gave me a chance to observe the dynamics I'd been blind to for 3 years. Sean and Claire were careful not to spend too much time together, but I could see the way they looked at each other across the crowd, the way Sean's hand lingered on Claire's back, when he congratulated her on Emily's wedding. The way Claire laughed just a little too hard at Sean's jokes. Monica and Tara were watching me nervously, probably wondering if I knew about the affair and what I planned to do about it. Richard Mitchell was drinking heavily and avoiding conversation with anyone, including his wife. Everyone was playing their part in the charade, just like they had been for 2 years. Emily and Jake were radiant, working the crowd and accepting congratulations from family and friends. Emily kept pulling me into conversations, introducing me to Jake's family, making sure I felt included in her new life. She had no idea that her parents' marriage was about to implode in front of 50 wedding guests. Dinner was served at 7 o'clock. I was seated at the head table with Emily, Jake, Claire, and Jake's parents. Sean was at table 2 with Monica and several other family friends. Perfect positioning for what was about to happen. After the main course, Jake's father stood up to give the first toast. He talked about love and commitment and the importance of family. Everyone raised their glasses and smiled and applauded. Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the room focus on me. Emily beamed up at me from her seat, expecting the proud father speech she deserved. "Thank you all for being here today to celebrate Emily and Jake," I began. "As Emily's father, this is one of the most important days of my life." Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Claire smiled up at me encouragingly. "Marriage is built on trust," I continued, "on honesty, on the promise that you'll be faithful to each other no matter what challenges you face." More nods and smiles. Emily reached over and squeezed Jake's hand. "Emily and Jake, you're starting your marriage with that trust, with that honesty, with that commitment to faithfulness." I paused and looked directly at Claire. Not everyone is lucky enough to have that foundation. Claire's smile faltered slightly. At table 2, Sean was starting to look uncomfortable. Some marriages are built on lies, on betrayal, on the kind of deception that destroys families and hurts innocent people. The room was getting quieter. People were starting to sense that this wasn't a typical father of the bride speech. "Emily, your mother and I have tried to model a good marriage for you. We wanted you to see what love and commitment look like." I pulled the manila envelope from my jacket pocket. Unfortunately, that model hasn't been as honest as it should have been. "Dad?" Emily's voice was small and confused. "What are you talking about?" I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me. Monica had gone pale. Tara was gripping her wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Sean was half standing, like he was thinking about making a run for it. "I'm talking about the fact that your mother has been having an affair with Sean Beckett for the past 3 years. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Claire shot to her feet. "Dan, what are you doing? This is Emily's wedding day." "Yes, it is. And I thought it was important for Emily to know the truth about marriage before she starts her own. I thought it was important for everyone here to know the truth about the people they've been celebrating." I opened the envelope and pulled out the hotel receipts. 3 years of secret meetings at hotels around Boston. The Marriott, the Hilton, the boutique place in Beacon Hill that costs $400 a night. I scattered the receipts across the head table like confetti. All paid for by my wife, all with Sean Beckett as the second guest. Sean finally found his voice. "Dan, this isn't the place, isn't it?" I cut him off. "Where exactly would be the appropriate place to discuss the fact that my best friend has been screwing my wife for 3 years while sitting at my dinner table and pretending to be my friend?" Emily was crying now. Jake had his arm around her, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. "And the best part," I continued, "is that half the people in this room knew about it. Tara knew, Monica knew, Richard probably suspected. Everyone knew except me and Emily." I pulled out the printed emails and started reading. "Sean, can't wait for this weekend at the Cape House. Dan thinks I'm at the marketing summit in Hartford. We'll have 2 whole days together." Claire lunged for the papers, but I held them out of reach. There's more. 3 years worth of emails planning secret meetings, discussing how to lie to me, talking about their future together after Claire leaves me. The crowd was starting to murmur now. Some people were standing up, trying to get a better view of the drama unfolding at the head table. Others were heading for the exits. "Dad, please stop," Emily begged. "Please don't do this here." I looked at my daughter, tears streaming down her face on her wedding day, and for a moment I wavered. But then I looked at Claire, who was staring at me with pure hatred, and I remembered why I was doing this. "Emily, I'm sorry you have to hear this today, but I couldn't let you start your marriage believing in a lie. I couldn't let you think that what your mother and Sean have been doing is acceptable in a committed relationship." Claire finally spoke up. "Dan, you're having some kind of breakdown. This is all a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I pulled out my phone and started playing a voicemail. Sean's voice filled the room through the venue's sound system. "Claire, it's me. I can't wait to get away with you this weekend. I've been thinking about leaving Susan anyway, and if you're serious about leaving Dan, maybe it's time we stopped sneaking around and made this official. I love you." The room erupted. People were shouting, crying, standing up, sitting down. Monica was arguing with her husband. Tara was trying to explain something to Richard. Jake's family looked like they'd wandered into someone else's nightmare. Sean was pushing through the crowd, heading for the exit. I wasn't about to let him escape that easily. "Sean," I called after him, "leaving so soon? I thought you'd want to stick around and explain to everyone how you've been betraying our friendship for 3 years. He turned around, and for the first time since I'd known him, Sean Beckett looked genuinely afraid. "Dan, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. It just happened? For 3 years? All those dinners at my house, all those times you looked me in the eye and called me your best friend. It was all just happening? It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple," I was shouting now, 22 years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. "You betrayed me! You both betrayed me! And you made everyone in this room complicit in your lies." Emily stood up, still crying. "Dad, I need you to stop. Please, this is my wedding day." I looked at her, my beautiful daughter in her wedding dress, and felt my heart break all over again. "You're right, sweetheart. This is your wedding day, and you deserve better than this." I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. You all deserve better than this. I walked over to Emily and kissed her forehead. "I love you, honey. I'm sorry it had to be today, but I couldn't let the lies continue." Then I walked out of the reception, leaving behind 22 years of marriage, a lifetime of friendship, and probably my relationship with my daughter. But for the first time in 3 years, everyone knew the truth. Pete was waiting for me in the parking lot, leaning against his car with a cigarette. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it. I felt empty, exhausted, and completely alone. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. "Free," I said. "I feel free." "Good. Because the real work starts now." "What do you mean?" Pete flicked his cigarette away and opened his car door. "I mean Claire's going to fight back. She's going to try to spin this, make you look like the bad guy. She's going to go after you in the divorce, try to take everything." "Let her try." "Dan, I'm serious. You just humiliated her in front of 50 people. She's not going to forgive that. She's going to want revenge." I got into Pete's car and looked back at the vineyard, where my daughter's wedding reception was probably still in chaos. "Then I guess we'd better make sure I'm ready for her." The divorce papers arrived by courier on Tuesday morning, 3 days after Emily's wedding. Claire wasn't wasting any time. According to the legal documents, I was an emotionally abusive husband who had deliberately humiliated and traumatized her at our daughter's wedding. She was seeking full custody of Emily, who was 20 years old and didn't need custody, the house, half my business, and permanent alimony. She was also claiming that my public breakdown at the wedding was evidence of mental instability and that I needed psychological evaluation before being allowed unsupervised contact with family members. I called Pete immediately. "She's playing hardball," he said after I read him the papers. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. She's trying to control the narrative, make you look like the unstable one." Can she do that? Can she actually get away with this? Dan, she's a successful marketing executive with no history of infidelity as far as the court knows. You're a guy who just exposed his wife's affair at his daughter's wedding in front of 50 witnesses. From the outside, you look like the crazy one. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair, the same chair where I'd eaten breakfast with Claire for 15 years, where I'd discovered her hotel receipts, where I'd planned her downfall. Now it felt like the only furniture I might have left after the divorce. So what do? We fight back, but we do it smart this time. No more public confrontations, no more dramatic revelations. We build a case. What kind of case? The kind that shows Claire has been planning this divorce for months, maybe years. The kind that proves she's been hiding assets and preparing to leave you while pretending to work on the marriage. The kind that makes her look like the calculating manipulator she really is. Pete was right. I'd been thinking about this all wrong. I'd been focused on exposing the affair, on making sure everyone knew what Claire and Sean had done. But I hadn't been thinking about the aftermath, about how Claire would respond to being publicly humiliated. Where do we start? We start with Emily. Have you talked to her since the wedding? I hadn't. Emily had called twice and sent several texts, but I hadn't been able to face her yet. I was too ashamed of what I'd done, too afraid of how much damage I'd caused. She's probably furious with me. Maybe, or maybe she's starting to understand why you did what you did. Either way, you need to talk to her. Because, Dan, if Claire gets Emily on her side, you're going to lose everything. I called Emily that afternoon. She answered on the first ring. "Dad? Hi, sweetheart. I know you probably don't want to talk to me right now. Dad, where are you? Are you okay?" Her voice was concerned, not angry. That was something, at least. "I'm at home. Emily, I'm so sorry about your wedding day. I know I ruined everything, and I'll never forgive myself for that." "Dad, you didn't ruin everything. You told the truth. It was horrible and embarrassing, and I cried for 2 hours, but you told the truth." I felt tears starting in my eyes. "You're not angry with me?" "I'm angry with Mom, and I'm angry with Sean, and I'm angry with everyone who knew about this and let it happen." Emily's voice was getting stronger. "Dad, after you left, Mom tried to explain everything. She said the marriage had been over for years, that you two had grown apart, that she'd found real love with Sean." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that if the marriage was over, she should have ended it before starting something with Sean. I told her that lying to you and me for 3 years wasn't about finding love, it was about being selfish and cowardly. My daughter, my brilliant, strong, honest daughter. How did she react to that? She said I was being naive, that adult relationships are complicated. Then she told me she was moving in with Sean, and that I needed to choose which parent I was going to support in the divorce." "Emily, you don't have to choose sides. This is between your mother and me." "Dad, she made me choose sides when she asked me to lie for her. She called this morning and wanted me to sign an affidavit saying that you've been emotionally abusive and unstable for years." My blood ran cold. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I wouldn't lie under oath for her any more than I would have lied to your face for the past 3 years. Then I hung up on her." "Emily." "Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course." "Did you know about Mom and Sean before the wedding?" I thought about lying, about protecting Emily from the knowledge that I'd deliberately chosen her wedding day for my revenge. But she deserved the truth. "Yes. I found out about 3 weeks before the wedding." "Why didn't you tell me then? Why did you wait until the wedding?" Because Pete and I figured out that your mother was planning to leave me right after your graduation. She was going to control the story, make me look like the bad guy, and probably ask you to choose sides anyway. I thought if everyone knew the truth at the same time, it would be harder for her to manipulate the situation. There was a long pause. That's pretty calculating, Dad. Yes, it was, and I'm not proud of it. But Emily, I was desperate. I'd been living a lie for 3 years, and I was about to lose everything to people who had been betraying me the whole time. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand it. Where does this leave us, sweetheart? It leaves us with me and Jake canceling our honeymoon so I can testify in your divorce proceedings about what kind of father you've actually been for the past 20 years. I started crying then, sitting in my empty kitchen, overwhelmed by gratitude for this amazing young woman I'd somehow helped raise. Emily, I love you so much. I love you too, Dad. And Dad? We're going to fight this. We're going to make sure everyone knows who the real victim is here. After I hung up with Emily, I felt something I hadn't felt since this whole mess started. Hope. Pete came over that evening with a bottle of whiskey and a legal pad full of notes. Okay, here's what I found out. Claire moved in with Sean on Sunday night, right after the wedding. She's already changed her address with the bank and her employer. She's also hired Margaret Chen, the most expensive divorce lawyer in Boston. How expensive? $500 an hour expensive, the kind of lawyer you hire when you want to destroy someone completely. Great. What else? Sean's wife, Susan, filed for divorce yesterday. Apparently, she hired a private investigator 6 months ago and has been building her own case. She's going after Sean for everything he's got. That was interesting. So, Sean's fighting a war on 2 fronts. Gets better. I talked to my buddy at Claire's office. Turns out the company has been investigating some irregularities in Claire's expense reports. All those hotel stays and fancy dinners she claimed were business expenses. The company is starting to ask questions. I poured myself a generous whiskey. How much trouble is she in? Potentially a lot. If they can prove she was using company money to fund her affair, she could be fired and possibly face criminal charges for embezzlement. And if she gets fired, she can't afford Margaret Chen. Exactly. But Dan, this cuts both ways. If Claire gets desperate, she might do something really stupid. Desperate people make dangerous enemies. Pete was right to be worried. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire launched a campaign of harassment that would have impressed a military strategist. First, she called my biggest clients and told them I was having a mental breakdown and couldn't be trusted to do reliable home inspections. I lost 3 major contracts in 2 days. Then she started calling my friends and family members, telling them her version of events. According to Claire, I'd been emotionally abusive for years, had refused to go to marriage counseling, and had deliberately sabotaged Emily's wedding out of spite. She also filed a restraining order claiming I'd been stalking her and Sean, driving by their apartment and making threatening phone calls. The order was denied when I provided phone records and credit card receipts proving I'd been nowhere near their apartment, but the accusation made the local newspaper. The worst part was watching our mutual friends choose sides. Monica and Tara rallied to Claire's defense, telling anyone who would listen that I was a bitter, vindictive man who couldn't handle his wife's success. Richard Mitchell, probably feeling guilty about not warning me about the affair, quietly stopped returning my phone calls. But Claire made a crucial mistake. She underestimated Emily. My daughter spent 2 weeks conducting her own investigation, calling friends and family members who had been contacted by Claire. Emily documented every lie, every exaggeration, every attempt at manipulation. She recorded phone calls where Claire tried to get Emily to lie about my behavior as a father. Most importantly, Emily talked to Jake's family about what they'd witnessed at the wedding. Jake's parents, who barely knew me, confirmed that my speech had been calm and factual, not the unhinged rant Claire was describing to her lawyer. 3 weeks after the wedding, Emily and I met with my lawyer, David Harrison. David was the opposite of Margaret Chen, a quiet, methodical man who charged reasonable rates and built his cases on facts instead of drama. "Mrs. Foster is overplaying her hand," David said after reviewing Emily's evidence. "She's making accusations she can't prove while you have documented evidence of her infidelity and deception. What about her claim that I'm mentally unstable? 20 witnesses at the wedding will testify that you were upset but coherent. Your daughter will testify that you've been a loving, stable father for 20 years. And frankly, discovering your spouse's affair and confronting them about it isn't evidence of mental illness. It's evidence of being human." Emily leaned forward. "What about Mom's job situation? Dad said she might be in trouble for using company money." David smiled. "That's where things get interesting. I've been in contact with her company's legal department. They're conducting a formal investigation, and they've asked us to provide documentation of her affair as it relates to her expense reports. Which means if Claire wants to keep claiming the hotel stays were legitimate business expenses, she'll have to explain why Sean Beckett was listed as her guest. And if she admits they were personal expenses, she'll have to pay the money back and probably lose her job." I felt a grim satisfaction. Claire had always been proud of her ability to manipulate any situation to her advantage, but she'd finally encountered a situation where the truth was more powerful than her spin. So what happens now? Now we wait for Claire to realize she's in an impossible position. She can't prove you're abusive or unstable, she can't hide her affair, and she can't afford to keep paying Margaret Chen if she loses her job. Eventually, she'll have to accept a reasonable settlement. And if she doesn't? David's smile turned predatory. Then we go to trial, and I get to cross-examine her about 3 years of lies and betrayal in front of a judge. Trust me, she doesn't want that. As we left David's office, Emily put her arm through mine. "Dad, I'm proud of you." "For what? For destroying your wedding day and breaking up our family? For refusing to be a victim? For fighting back when everyone expected you to just accept what was happening to you?" We walked to our cars in comfortable silence. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I might actually win. But Claire had one more card to play, and it was going to change everything. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Thursday in June. I was deep asleep when my phone started ringing with Emily's ringtone. My first thought was that something had happened to her or Jake. "Dad, you need to get to the hospital right now." I was instantly awake. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "It's not me, it's Sean. He's in the ICU at Mass General. And Dad, the police want to talk to you." I threw on clothes and drove to the hospital in a haze of confusion and growing dread. Emily met me in the waiting room, her face pale and frightened. "What happened to Sean?" "Someone beat him up, really badly. He's got a concussion, broken ribs, internal bleeding. Dad, they think someone tried to kill him." My stomach dropped. "And they think I did it?" "Mom told them you've been stalking her and Sean. She said you've been making threats, that you've been unstable since the wedding. She gave them copies of all the divorce papers talking about your mental state." This was a disaster. I'd been so focused on fighting Claire in divorce court that I hadn't considered she might try to frame me for something criminal. "Emily, I was home all night. I was watching Netflix and fell asleep on the couch around 11. Can you prove that?" I thought about it. I lived alone now, had no witnesses, no alibi. My Netflix account would show what I'd been watching, but that didn't prove I'd been home. "I don't think so." Detective Maria Santos found us in the waiting room 20 minutes later. She was a small, intense woman with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that made me immediately nervous. "Mr. Foster, I'm Detective Santos. I need to ask you some questions about your whereabouts last night between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. "I was at home, asleep." "Anyone who can verify that?" "No, I live alone." She made a note. "Mr. Foster, I understand you've been going through a difficult divorce. Your wife says you've been having trouble accepting the end of your marriage. My wife has been lying about a lot of things lately, Detective. She says you publicly humiliated her at your daughter's wedding, that you've been harassing her and Mr. Beckett since then. Emily spoke up. Detective, my father hasn't been harassing anyone. My mother has been trying to manipulate the divorce proceedings by making false accusations. Detective Santos looked at Emily with interest. You're the daughter? Yes. And I can tell you that my father has been nothing but honest throughout this whole situation. My mother is the one who's been lying and manipulating people. That's a serious accusation, Miss Foster. It's a serious situation. My mother had an affair for 3 years, lied to our entire family, and is now trying to destroy my father's reputation to avoid taking responsibility for what she did. I was proud of Emily for defending me, but I was also worried she was making things worse. Detective, can you tell me exactly what happened to Sean? Mr. Beckett was attacked in the parking lot of his apartment building around midnight. Someone beat him with what appears to have been a baseball bat. He's lucky to be alive. And you think I did this? I think you had motive, Mr. Foster. Your wife left you for this man. He betrayed your friendship. You've been publicly angry about the situation. She was right about the motive. I'd certainly thought about hurting Sean over the past few weeks. I'd fantasized about punching him, about making him pay for what he'd done to our friendship. But fantasy and reality were very different things. Detective, I understand why you'd suspect me, but I didn't do this. I'm not a violent person. Your wife says otherwise. She says you've been making threats. My wife is lying, just like she lied about her affair for 3 years. Detective Santos studied me for a long moment. Mr. Foster, I'm going to need you to come to the station for a formal interview, and I'd recommend you call a lawyer. 3 hours later, I was sitting in an interrogation room with David Harrison, answering the same questions over and over again. Where was I last night? Did I own a baseball bat? Had I threatened Sean Beckett? Did I know where he lived? The interview lasted 2 hours. David advised me to answer honestly but briefly, not to volunteer information, and not to let them provoke me into saying something stupid. When it was over, Detective Santos told me not to leave town and to expect more questions as the investigation continued. Am I under arrest? Not at this time, but Mr. Foster, if evidence points to your involvement in this attack, you will be. David and I walked out of the police station into the bright morning sunlight. I felt like I'd been awake for days. How bad is this, David? It's bad. They have motive. They have your wife's accusations of threatening behavior, and they have no evidence pointing to anyone else. But they don't have any physical evidence linking me to the attack, right? Not yet. But Dan, if they find your fingerprints on a baseball bat, or if someone saw you near Sean's apartment last night, you're going to be charged with attempted murder. I spent the next 3 days in a state of suspended terror, waiting for Detective Santos to show up at my door with an arrest warrant. I couldn't work, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except the possibility of spending the rest of my life in prison for something I didn't do. Emily stayed with me, refusing to leave me alone despite my protests that she should be with Jake, starting her new married life instead of dealing with her father's legal troubles. Dad, we're family. We stick together. Emily, if I get arrested for this, it's going to be all over the news. Your name will be associated with this mess. It could hurt your career, your reputation. I don't care about my reputation. I care about you, and I know you didn't do this. How can you be so sure? Emily looked at me with the same expression she'd had as a little girl when she was explaining something obvious to a confused adult. Because, Dad, if you were going to beat up Sean Beckett with a baseball bat, you would have done it 3 years ago when you first found out about the affair. You wouldn't have waited until now, and you wouldn't have been stupid enough to do it right in the middle of divorce proceedings when you'd be the obvious suspect. She was right. If I'd been capable of that kind of violence, I would have acted on it immediately, in the heat of discovery and betrayal. The fact that I'd waited, that I'd planned a public confrontation instead of a private beating, should have been evidence of my innocence, not my guilt. But the police weren't interested in psychological profiles. They were interested in evidence, and all the evidence pointed to me. On Friday afternoon, Pete showed up at my house with information that changed everything. "Danny, I think I know who really attacked Sean." "What are you talking about?" "I've been doing some digging, talking to people, following up on some leads. You remember Sean's wife, Susan?" "Yeah, she filed for divorce after the wedding." "Right. Well, it turns out Susan has been a lot more involved in this situation than anyone realized." Pete sat down at my kitchen table and opened his notebook. "Susan hired that private investigator 6 months ago, right? But she didn't just have him follow Sean. She had him follow Claire, too. She's got photos, recordings, documentation of the entire affair." "Okay, but how does that help me?" "Because Susan also had the PI follow Sean on Tuesday night, the night he was attacked." I felt a spark of hope. "And?" "And the PI has photographs of Susan's brother Michael leaving Sean's apartment building at 12:15 a.m., 15 minutes after the attack." "Susan's brother?" "Michael Torino. He's got a record for assault and battery, did 2 years in prison for beating up his ex-wife's boyfriend with a baseball bat." The pieces were falling into place. So Susan found out about the affair, hired a PI to document it, and then had her brother beat up Sean. That's what it looks like. And here's the best part. The PI is willing to testify. He's got photos, he's got a timeline, and he's got no loyalty to Susan since she stopped paying him last week. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in days. "We need to call David Harrison right now." "Already did. He's meeting with Detective Santos this afternoon." 6 hours later, Detective Santos called to tell me I was no longer a suspect in the attack on Sean Beckett. Susan Torino and her brother Michael had been arrested and charged with conspiracy and assault with a deadly weapon. The news broke on Saturday morning. The local papers had a field day with the story, the scorned wife who hired her criminal brother to beat up her husband's lover. It was the kind of salacious drama that sold newspapers and generated clicks, but the best part was watching Claire's reaction. She'd built her entire divorce strategy around portraying me as an unstable, violent man who couldn't be trusted. She'd spent weeks telling anyone who would listen that I was dangerous, that I'd threatened her and Sean, that I was capable of anything. Now everyone knew that the real violence had come from someone else entirely. Someone who, unlike me, had actually acted on their desire for revenge. Claire's credibility was destroyed. Her lawyer, Margaret Chen, quietly withdrew from the case, probably realizing that her client had been lying to her from the beginning. Claire was forced to hire a cheaper attorney and accept a much less favorable settlement. She kept the house but had to buy out my half of its value. I kept my business and my retirement accounts. We split the other assets 50-50, and there was no alimony for either of us. Most importantly, Emily's testimony about Claire's attempts to manipulate her into lying was included in the court record. Everyone could see exactly what kind of person Claire really was. The final hearing was scheduled for the last week of June, almost 2 months after Emily's wedding. I walked into the courthouse feeling something I hadn't felt in years: confidence. Claire was already there with her new lawyer, a tired-looking man who clearly wished he was handling someone else's case. She looked older than she had at the wedding, worn down by weeks of stress and the collapse of her carefully constructed lies. Sean wasn't there. He was still recovering from his injuries and dealing with his own divorce proceedings. According to Emily, he and Claire had broken up the week after his attack, each blaming the other for the disaster their affair had become. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. Both lawyers presented their arguments. The judge reviewed the evidence and testimony, and the divorce was granted with the terms David and I had negotiated. 22 years of marriage ended in less than an hour. As we walked out of the courthouse, Claire tried to approach me. "Dan, I want you to know that I never meant for things to end this way." I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for more than half my life, and felt nothing but pity. "Claire, You meant for things to end exactly this way. You just thought you'd be the one controlling how it happened. I loved you once. I hope you know that. I know you did. But you stopped loving me a long time ago, and instead of being honest about it, you decided to lie and cheat and manipulate everyone around you. That's not love, Claire. That's selfishness. She started to say something else, but I was already walking away. Emily and Jake were waiting for me in the parking lot. They'd postponed their honeymoon again to be there for the final hearing, and I was overwhelmed with gratitude for their support. "How do you feel, Dad?" Emily asked. "Free," I said. "For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free." We went to dinner that night at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. Emily and Jake told me about their plans for the future, their careers, their hopes for children someday. We talked about everything except the divorce, the affair, and the mess that had dominated our lives for the past 2 months. It felt like a new beginning. As we were finishing dessert, Emily raised her wine glass. "I want to make a toast," she said, "to my dad, who taught me that honesty matters more than convenience, that integrity matters more than reputation, and that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do." Jake raised his glass. "To Dan, who showed me what kind of father I want to be someday." I raised my own glass, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the lies, the public confrontation, the legal battles, the false accusations. All of it had been painful, but all of it had been necessary. "To the truth," I said, "and to the people who stand by you when you tell it." We clinked our glasses together, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt genuinely happy. 6 months later, I was rebuilding my business and my life. Most of my old clients had come back once they realized Claire's claims about my mental state had been lies. I'd even picked up some new clients who respected the way I'd handled the divorce situation. Emily and Jake were thriving in their new jobs and their new marriage. They'd finally taken their honeymoon, a 2-week trip to Italy that they'd planned without any family drama or legal complications. I was dating again, tentatively and carefully, but with hope for the future. Claire had moved to New York to take a job with a smaller marketing firm. According to Emily, she was struggling financially and professionally, her reputation damaged by the divorce proceedings and the embezzlement investigation. Sean had recovered from his injuries but lost his law practice and most of his assets in his own divorce. He'd moved back to his hometown in Ohio, probably to start over where no one knew about his affair or the circumstances that had led to his beating. Susan Torino and her brother were both serving prison sentences for the attack. The PI who'd provided the evidence that cleared me had started a new career as a private security consultant. Everyone had faced consequences for their choices. Everyone had gotten exactly what they deserved. On a warm evening in December, almost exactly a year after I'd first discovered Claire's hotel receipts, I was sitting in my kitchen reading the newspaper when my phone rang. It was Emily. "Dad, I have some news. Good news, I hope?" "The best news. Jake and I are going to have a baby." I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Emily, that's wonderful. I'm going to be a grandfather. You're going to be the best grandfather in the world. And Dad, I want you to know that this baby is going to grow up knowing the truth about family, about loyalty, about doing the right thing even when it's hard. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Dad." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen and thought about the future. I was going to be a grandfather. Emily and Jake were going to raise their children with the values Claire and I had tried to instill in Emily: honesty, integrity, loyalty, and the courage to stand up for what's right. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, the public confrontation, the legal battles, all of it had been worth it to reach this moment. I raised my coffee mug in a solitary toast to the empty kitchen. "To new beginnings," I said out loud, "and to the family we choose to build from the ashes of the family we thought we had." Outside, snow was beginning to fall, covering the world in a clean white blanket that made everything look fresh and new. It was going to be a good year.